Sashka Jovanovska from North Macedonia. Actually, I'm assistant professor at the Department of English Language and Literature at the Faculty of Philology at Goce Delchev University in North Macedonia, Štip. Today, I would like to talk about something that is maybe more formal, but truthfully interesting for the audience, talking about word classes in English, grammatical categories, because I'm teaching English for 15 years, and being an editor for maybe 10 years, I have read a lot of articles that are somehow grammatically incorrect, and also taking a lot of revisions in this part. That's why I chose this item to talk about the grammatical categories which are part of English. Not only that, I would like to say something more about grammatical incorrectness in revising all the articles that are written. But also teaching students, we can find out that there are some kind of incorrect usage of sentences, which actually, as it is known, maybe we must focus our attention to the grammar purposes, even though that we are all aware that the semantic part, actually the meaning part of what we want to express, is somehow connected, and the most important thing to play here is the grammar rules, that one sentence can be prepared and also spelled into the audience. That's why mentioning a lot of things that are somehow connected with these grammatical categories, especially with the accent of word phrases, I must emphasize that talking about the action in one sentence is something that is really important, but the usage of the grammar and the usage of verbs are the most important, play actually the most important part. That's why we must emphasize that the basic sentence structure actually is in English is focused on subject and predicate. When we talk about subject, we must emphasize that that is the noun phrase which performs the action, or someone who is doing the action. But when we talk about the predicate, we must emphasize that there is kind of verb phrase that contains the verbs which somehow can be connected with objects, complements, or modifiers. Talking about these grammatical categories, we can say that there are word classes, but there are groups which are similar with grammar properties and functions that are part, which we are talking about nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs. Defining all these word categories are closely related with the grammar. But before the other colleagues whose presentations were great, been talking about the methodology, the way how we have to prepare the article, and also how the modern technology of IE is involved here. I, as professor, can find out that there are a lot of usages of technology improvement in the part of writing those kind of articles where those grammatical incorrectness are present. That's why actually I can also find that my students can have those kind of problems, maybe somehow coping or passing all these grammatical rules which are focused in this part. I must emphasize that we've been talking about that defining noun phrase is noun phrase where we can say that those are proper nouns and so on, but we can use the verb phrase, which can be one verb which is lexical, or maybe we can have another auxiliary verb, and forming a complex verb tenses which are part of the one sentence constitution. And if we talk about the verb, we must emphasize that that is the action, actually the state of one sentence. Using proper tense, if we want to express a kind of an action that happened before 3 days, we must use the past simple. Or if we want to express our future actions, we must use the future. But regarding here, the most problem that is somehow found in articles in the usage of language is the perfect tense, which according in my native language actually cannot be translated in the same, because we do not have the transfer. But actually somehow we must be aware why those kind of tenses are presented and why do we need to use them. Also, there is object which reserves the action of the verb or the complement, which provide information about the subject or the object. And we have also the adverbials which modify the verbs, and adjectives or adverb. Doing a kind of research with the third year students from generation to 2024, we did a kind of a research where actually we've been talking about the lexical verbs, which are definitely large generally vocabulary in language. And those are run, eat, for example, seem, explain, recycle, or as you can see here. But we can see that there is another group where we can talk about the auxiliary verbs, in contrast, which here the clear ones can be, have, do, which are the lexical, and also can play another role for auxiliary verb, which are also part of modal verbs. For example, we can talk about can, could, will, and the other modal verbs that are part. And also, when we talk about a full verb phrase, which must contain a lexical verb, it may contain an auxiliary verb. For example, we can say Nina plays the piano, and we have Nina played the piano. Andrew is explaining his generalization, or Marty should have recycled those bottles. Tim may have been preparing his lecture. We have here that there are auxiliary verbs in part of those which are not lexical verbs, but auxiliary verbs are those which are helping verbs just to form a proper tense. But in general point, we must identify those categories where there is one then more category. For example, if we talk about interest, for example, we can see that there is a modification of this kind of verb. Interest, interesting, interested. That's why, for example, we can say Miles here is interested. Or we can say it's a great architectural interest did not strike him immediately, or John's interests are rather attractive. That's why we have a different modification, or a very interesting plan was proposed. He was very interested in a bean production. That's why doing this kind of a research, we focused our attention especially in the usage of auxiliary verbs and also of lexical verbs and the division that is given. But here there are the subcategories of lexical verbs, and in this category we put all this. All these verbs that are found in every single sentence. The students did this research, and actually they took a kind of novels which they actually used to love, to like, and use the sentences from there in the research. Here are the lexical verbs categories which are mentioned and must be aware when we are using all of this. Talking about transitive verbs, where we know that those requires a single noun phrase or a complement of it, which are above than dream. Those are transitive, and the noun phrase that can complement transitive verbs is said to be a functional, more specifically as a kind of a direct verb. But we have also intransitive verb, where there are actually verbs which does not require further consonant. For example, sleep, die, laugh. Expressing in one sentence, we can say she sleeps well. And that's why, since there is an intransitive verb, there's no one requiring of element, which is in a verb part of a complement. Talking about the transitive, where sometimes the students from all aware, actually I'm teaching English